Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour Fired Up. I'm your host, Nathan Harvey. Thank you for joining me today on this Wednesday afternoon. It's great that you chose us today. A lot of options out there, a lot of sports shows out there. I appreciate anyone who's tuning in for today's episode of the Harvey Hour Fired Up. Doing a little bit early today. I thought I'd get this finished with, because we got a lot of news going. We got a lot of news going to break down. Mainly, we're talking about Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals, and then we're also going to be talking about a preview of the NBA Finals coming up tomorrow, which is huge. Nuggets in 9 days of rest. Heat coming off of 48 hours of rest? I'll talk about that. I'll break that down for you in today's episode of the Harvey Hour Fired Up. Let's get into our first topic, though. So, Game 7 was, I believe, Monday night. And I'm going to start off with at least the Celtics perspective here. So the Celtics' philosophy throughout the entirety of this NBA season without Ime Udoka, who is a very defensive-minded head coach. Instead, you have Joe Mazzulla, a more new-school head coach who relied on the three ball, hence the lineup of Al Horford being the only big man, and putting Derek White in the starting lineup instead of having Robert Williams, a defensive masterpiece for the Celtics in the starting lineup. Instead, you got Marcus Smart, Derek White, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Al Horford out there to mainly shoot the three ball. That was Mazzulla's claim to fame, and honestly, he won 5 more games than Ime Udoka did last year. However, it seemed to have its ups and downs throughout the season, and especially in the playoffs, let's start with the Philadelphia 76ers, they actually had to resort back to that big lineup in Game 6 and 7, where they only allowed 80-something points per game in Game 6 and 7. Then they decided to try it out against the Heat, they're incredibly smart. Eric Spoelstra, arguably the best head coach right now in the NBA. It didn't work so well. They go down 3-0. Then you want to go back to the smaller lineup, and it started to work a little bit. And then Game 6. Game 6 was a huge telling point, at least for me. I saw it. Me and my dad argued about it on the show on Monday. The Celtics should not have won Game 6. They got very, very lucky. Maybe it was the spirit of Bill Russell, number 6 in Game 6, that they won that game. They had a 10-point lead with about 4 minutes remaining in the game, and they blew it. It wasn't until Derek White got a lucky bounce off a Marcus Smart almost made 3 with 0.2 seconds left. He was able to get the tip in, and the Celtics at least forced a Game 7 to try to make history. And then Game 7 came around. Would you believe that in the first quarter, the Celtics shot from 3 0 for 10? 0 for 10? It wasn't like they were being scared to shoot the 3. No, they were shooting it. They were shooting it at will. And honestly, the Celtics, they went out in the perfect way possible. A most fitting way possible. They lived and died by the 3, and on Monday night, they died by the 3. And maybe it was because Jason Tatum rolled his ankle. I don't think that made an entirely huge impact, because even after then, the Celtics outside of Jason Tatum couldn't hit a shot. So it wasn't like Jason Tatum was this main cog that all of a sudden, as soon as he got hurt, no one else could play basketball. No. Did it hurt the Celtics? Obviously it did. But did it cause other players like Jaylen Brown to give up 8 turnovers? Damn, I'm going to look it up right here. He damn near had a triple-double based on turnovers alone. He had 8 turnovers, the same amount of rebounds as turnovers. That's embarrassing. He shot 1 of 9 from 3 as well. I'm going to get into Jaylen Brown in the next topic here, but this is just bad. This is just bad. So the Celtics went out, died by the 3, and also terrible communication on defense. Hell, no, there was no communication on defense. There was a play that's going around I saw on Twitter. It was about, they were going back on defense, and Grant Williams didn't know where the hell he was. Jason Tatum had to bop him on the head and say, hey, go guard the dude in front of you. He didn't know where the hell he was. A lack of communication. The Heat had open threes. It was just terrible. It seemed like they just got complacent and said, oh, we have them on the ropes. They're backing up. They're on their heels. So we could take Game 7. It'll be a breeze. We'll shut them down. You can't really do that against a team that literally has been living off energy, living off motivation, living off momentum. And the Heat followed through with that once again. The momentum of the first series against Milwaukee was shocking. Beating the Bucks in 5? That was crazy. They brought it into the Knicks series. They won in 6. And now you go into the Celtics series. They were up by 3. They're up 3-0 in the series. They almost lose it. The Celtics win 3 straight. And the Heat close it out in Boston. But honestly, I don't think a lot of people will, like me saying this because, the Heat were underdogs. If you're up 3-0, you're supposed to win the series. Am I shocked the Heat won Game 7? No, I'm not. Because the Heat, like I said, throughout the entirety of these playoffs, have put in way more effort and have seemingly, they seem like they want it way more than any other team does. The Knicks, they played terrible basketball. The Heat wanted it, and even Julius Randle commented on that. The Bucks, I don't know what went with them. Chris Middleton didn't have a great series. Giannis was hurt for like a game and a half or something like that, 2 games. They just wanted it more. They just wanted more. And in the Celtics series, you go up 3-0. Yeah, there's a problem. You think the Celtics are just going to be complacent and say, hey, they're an 8 seed. We can just blow right by them. No, you can't do that. You can't do that. And is that coaching? Maybe. Is that the players not playing? I'm not putting this game on Missoula. You can't put it on Missoula. If your players don't show up and play at least half-decent basketball, this was brutal to watch. Every time they shot 3, it's like, okay, rebound Heat. Let's just do it. They're going to score on the other end. I wasn't expecting them to hit a 3, and for the first quarter, they didn't hit a 3. This was just embarrassing 10 times over. So I got to give it to the Heat. They just wanted it more, and that showed. It showed. But I will say this. This game was not about Jimmy Butler. I hate to break it to you. This is not a Jimmy Butler moment. Hell, we haven't seen Jimmy Butler since the first series. Since he dropped, 46 and 56 in back-to-back games? We haven't seen that Jimmy Butler in 2 straight playoff series. He didn't do it with the Knicks. And in this game, I hate to break it to you, it wasn't Jimmy Butler who won this game for them. It was Caleb Martin. I'm not going to get into a big argument about, Caleb Martin should have won Eastern Conference Finals MVP. He should have, because he's the reason probably why they won this game. He was hitting very, very clutch threes. He went 4 of 6 from 3, knocking down his threes when he needed to, and keeping the Heat alive and maintaining a lead when the Heat, besides Caleb Martin, couldn't hit a shot. The Celtics have had opportunities to claw back a 5-point deficit, a 6-point deficit, and Caleb Martin would hit a 3 and put it up by 9 or by 8 to maintain that Heat lead so the Celtics couldn't get a rhythm. So Caleb Martin, he had a huge impact on this game. Bam didn't have a great game. He had 10 rebounds and 7 assists, only 12 points, but it didn't matter. It did not matter. Because guess what? Caleb Martin had a hell of a game. He could not miss. He had a couple open threes. I'm like, do you understand what's going on in this game? He's ripping you to shreds, and you got Derek White wondering where the hell he is. He's right in front of you. That's the lack of communication. So I will give this to the Heat. They wanted it more, and there were people saying, Scott Foster and Tony Brothers, they broke down the referee stats about this. I don't believe that for a damn second. I think that's just bad luck, or maybe it's matchups, or it's just the team didn't play well. I don't believe that, and this is a perfect example of it. I think the Heat have only won 1 game in the past 3 or 4 seasons when Scott Foster was a referee of their games. I don't believe it for a second, and this game proved it. So I got to give it to the Heat. They wanted it more. The Celtics did not show up. They thought, they're on the ropes. They're backing up. We got them. Let's just take over this game. And they just couldn't get it done. But this is a ceremonious end to the Celtics season. They were down 3-0. Their entire philosophy this year was live and die by the 3. Well, it came to a culmination. You died by your 3. So will Joe Mazzulla retain his job? I think he will. Because guess what? They still won 3 games when being down 0-3. They almost made history. They were the 4th team in NBA history to force a Game 7 after being down 0-3. So I think those 3 wins, secured Mazzulla's job. I think, honestly, doing a better job, at least in the win-loss column, than Ime Udoka did. I think that also helps you out. But these playoffs were not great. Not great. So We'll take it. We'll see. We will see what happens in the offseason with Missoula. But I do want to talk about the Jalen Brunson situation because this is interesting. So Jalen Brunson and Jason Tatum are both now available because of the All-NBAs that they were selected to. They are now both able to get Supermax contracts. I believe if I read it correctly, Jalen Brunson's a 5-year, $295 or $290 million contract. And so the question is, the Celtics, they made it to the finals last year, lost to the Warriors. Now they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals this year, and they lose to the Heat after being down 0-3. What's the next move for the Boston Celtics? There's one thing you could do that honestly makes the most sense. And that's bring back your two best players on that team. It's to sign them to Supermax deals and move forward. Maybe move Marcus Smart. Maybe move an Al Horford. Maybe move a Malcolm Brogdon who you just got. Maybe move a Derek White. Move pieces around your two main stars and move forward. I think that's honestly your best outcome. Because since, honestly, Marcus Smart came to the Celtics in 2014 and 15, in that year, the Celtics have never missed the playoffs. They've made it to 5 Eastern Conference Finals. They made it to 1 NBA Finals. Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown together have never missed the playoffs. Jaylen Brown individually, who was 1 year before Tatum, never missed the playoffs. Marcus Smart, who was 1 or 2 years before Jaylen Brown, never missed the playoffs. So since those three have been together, and even individually, those three players, they've never missed the playoffs. However, there have been some definite rough patches, and Jaylen Brown, he had some not so great comments about the fans of Boston. Could mean he's out of there. Seems like there's rifts between him and the organization. That could mean something, but I do think the Celtics should try to retain, and the report is they will offer him this Supermax deal. It's more than likely they will. And I think that's honestly your best case scenario. Move off of some other players, bench players, role players. I don't know why you still have Peyton Pritchard. Get off Grant Williams. Maybe get off of Derek White. Try to get another piece that is consistent. Marcus Smart has had options where he's like, okay, he can hit 3 sometimes, but then other games he can't do anything. They still don't have a really great point guard, a true point guard, a true distributor of the basketball. They don't have that. So maybe go out and get one of those pieces. Now, if you do retain Jaylen Brown, I don't know what you would do outside of that. Obviously, you want to get a main piece, but then you need to get off Marcus Smart, who is honestly him, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown. They're the core of that team. Do you put in Brogdon, who you just signed? Do you retain Brogdon? What about all your role players? Do you get off Grant Williams? What about Derek White? You want to throw him in there? You could look around the NBA and see who you could trade for. The Celtics, I think, honestly, the best case scenario would be to retain both players. Sign them to Supermax deals. Because guess what? Most of the great NBA players that have won chips right now in the league have won it at 27 or above. LeBron won at 27. I think Curry won it at 27. These players have won it about the age of where Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum will be next year. I believe they're both 26, if I'm not mistaken, 25, 26 years old. So the Celtics need to do a little bit of work to, form this roster so it could go back into championship form. But this team needs hard coaching. Hard coaching. Jason Tatum, his best was when Ime Udoka was down his back. He needs hard coaching. Jaylen Brown had a little bit of a problem with maybe, the rumors about the Celtics trading him for KD. And maybe, it sticks in his craw a little bit. However, I do think if you get the pieces around him that you could succeed with, like a distributor, which they still don't have. Marcus Smart is not a distributor. I thought Malcolm Brogdon would be in the starting lineup. He wasn't the guy I really thought he would be. However, he was 6th man of the year, so he was good enough. You need a true point guard. Go find somebody. Or pick one up in free agency. There's not many options out there, but you could find, a diamond in the rough. Maybe Fred VanVleet, who could be available. So, there you go. That's what I would do. If I was the Celtics GM, I would go out and get myself a true point guard, try to move off of pieces that you don't necessarily need, and you also need to retain your 2 stars in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, sign them to Supermax deals. That may make it more complicated to sign other big names if you're going for other big names. But, here's the thing. If someone makes you a great offer for Jaylen Brown, I would do it. If someone gives you like tremendous pieces, maybe like a Julius Randle or something like that, some very, very good pieces, obviously it'd be Julius Randle and other players, of course, or other picks. I get that, but Julius Randle will be the main star of that trade. I would go for that. I would not retain Jaylen Brown just to retain him. I would retain him if I'm going to build a core around him and Jason Tatum. And I would move off him if I really have a great deal that I could get off him for. That's me. That's what I would do. I could be wrong. Maybe you should just get off him and say, hey, screw it. You had 8 turnovers in a game, in an elimination game. Let's get off him. Whatever. Maybe. Who knows? That's just my take on the subject. And let's go to our last topic of today's episode of the Harvey Hour Fired Up. We're talking about tomorrow's game. Heat Nuggets Game 1. The Nuggets are favored by 8.5. The series is minus 500 for the Denver Nuggets. I think it's one of the biggest disparities in like 20-something years. Like, that's how big the Nuggets are favored in this series. And what's funny is that people still aren't giving the Heat credit. They were major underdogs against the Bucks. When they beat them in 5, they were major underdogs against the Knicks. They beat them in 6. They were huge underdogs against the Celtics. They beat them in 7. They should have beat them in like 4 or 5, let's be real. And now they're major underdogs against the Nuggets? Does that make sense? I think it does. I think it does. I'll say this right now. I picked against the Heat I picked the Heat to beat the Hawks. They lost to the Hawks, so I got a little bit sour about it, and it made sense to pick the Bucks against them. I wanted to see the Knicks move on. I thought it was a great story, so I picked the Knicks against them. The Celtics are the deepest team in the NBA and the more talented team in the NBA. I picked them to beat the Heat. So the only time I picked the Heat, they lost. Every time I picked against the Heat, they won. A little bit tough. However, I'm going to pick against the Heat again. No, honestly, people who are questioning this in the comments, who's going to stop Nikola Jokic? You want Bam to stop Jokic? Bam, look at Bam's figure compared to Jokic's. Jokic is a moving tank. There's no stopping him. So based on that, and first of all, Jamal Murray and Jimmy Butler, I think will go head to head, 1-for-1. So that's that matchup right there. I'll consider, maybe it's not exactly even, but it's even enough for me to make this comparison. Who's even with Nikola Jokic? You can't say Bam. Bam doesn't have the skill set and talent that Nikola Jokic possesses. Kevin Love? Walking mummified fossil Kevin Love? Caleb Martin? No, none of these players can go one-on-one or to match up evenly with Nikola Jokic. So once again, I said this in the Suns series with the Nuggets. It's going to be about role players. Because the stars in the playoffs, no matter well one-on-one, it's all about the supporting cast that needs to step up to get the wins. The Heat did that. The Celtics, they had a tough time role player-wise to hit the shots. So it was obvious when Duncan Robinson, Caleb Martin, Gabe Vincent, you also had Max Strus, they were hitting shots. Yeah, it made sense the Celtics were down 3-0 at one point in the series. In this one, it's going to be a little bit difficult. Because can the Nuggets with Bruce Brown and KCP, can players like that step up for the Nuggets to go one-on-one, to go evenly compared to a Max Strus or a Caleb Martin, a Duncan Robinson, even a Kyle Lowry who comes off the bench? Tyler Hero will apparently be available by Game 3. What's the series going to look like in Game 3? The Nuggets have never lost a home game. The Heat have won, I believe, 6 straight Game 1s or something like that? I'm going to pick the Nuggets to win the series in 6. And this is why. I think, honestly, the rest would be pretty good for the Nuggets. People saying, oh, is the rust and rest really significant in damaging a team's, movement and momentum? That could be. However, I will say this. When you just played a 7-game series and a 6-game series and a 5-game series, and you had to try way more because you were an inferior team on paper to literally every other team you played, yeah, you're going to be tired most likely as you go down that series, as you go down each series. And now you have to play against a very physical, very dominant, very explosive, very technically sound Denver Nuggets team. So if this series goes the distance, I have no doubt in my mind the Nuggets will get this done. Because I think, honestly, the Heat will be exhausted. Could we see what happened in the bubble year where it was literally Jimmy Butler or bust? In game 1, you saw him panting and he couldn't catch a breath. Could we see that Jimmy Butler? Maybe, if he really needs to be Jimmy Butler. But we haven't seen that type of Jimmy Butler since the first series. Honestly, he's averaged about, 24, 25 points? We haven't seen him drop 35, 36, 40, damn near 50. We haven't seen that since the first series against the Bucks. Nikola Jokic is a walking triple-double. I don't see anyone stopping that from happening. Jamal Murray, I think he'll have his moments. And by the way, Aaron Gordon, he's a great wing defender. I hate to break it to you. He's a great defender. He's probably going to go up against Jimmy Butler. I think that'll cause problems for Jimmy Butler. And if it's not Jimmy Butler, we're going to need to have another Caleb Martin, virtuoso performance. Or Gabe Vincent might need to drop 29 again. Duncan Robinson may need to hit 4, 5, 6 threes in the game for them to have a chance if Jimmy Butler is getting locked down. That's the truth of it. So that's what I would do. I would pick the Nuggets in 6. I do think that is a good pick. I don't think they should be as big underdogs as they are, the Miami Heat. I think they need to get, a little bit more respect. I think they're getting beyond disrespected. I mean, this is just terrible. And so I think, honestly, Nuggets are going to go into game 1. Now, would I be shocked if they lose game 1? Absolutely not. Because maybe the rest and the rust of being off for 9, 10 days, it may affect them more than I'm thinking. However, I do think the Heat will be tired after 48 hours of playing a game 7. Now, if it went down to the wire in game 7, I would feel better about game 1. If it went to overtime, maybe. Or if it just went down to the absolute wire and it was a very hard-fought game for the Heat. In game 7, I would be more confident in game 1. However, I will still pick the Nuggets because they're still undefeated at home. So I'll pick them. They're minus 8.5. I'll pick the Heat plus 8.5, but I'll take the Nuggets money line for them to win. So that is my pick of the series of game 1. I think the Nuggets win 111-106. That's my pick. It's a 5-point win for the Nuggets. Nuggets take game 1. They win in 6. I could see them losing game 2 maybe, but we'll see. I mean, ratings-wise, I don't think this is the true storyline. I think storyline-wise, the 76ers Nuggets would have been good. Lakers, Celtics, that obviously would have been good. But, we can't get the best storyline. We got the Nuggets and the Heat. This could be a good story depending on how this plays out. If Nikola Jokic, gets hurt, God forbid, or just doesn't show up to the standards. If Jamal Murray has a phenomenal game, if he drops like 35 points, we'll have to wait and see. Tomorrow, 8:30 p.m. on ABC, the NBA Finals. Game 1 is tomorrow. I cannot wait to see exactly what Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat have to do, or how they're matched up against the Denver Nuggets, but we will see tomorrow. That is it for this episode of the Harvey R Fired Up. Thank you for everyone who tuned in today's episode. I appreciate all of you. Make sure you guys tune in Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. We will recap Game 1 of the NBA Finals, as well as we got our first look at the Baker Mayfield Kyle Trask QB competition for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I'm nervous for Bucs fans. I don't think they're going to be very happy with how this season's going to turn out, but we will break it down on Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, right out here on YouTube. I will see you then.
Introducing video podcasts on Spotify.
Transform your storytelling into a show everyone can watch
or listen to.
Easily upload your video through Anchor, Spotify's free podcast creation tool.
So whether you're showing off a new recipe,
interviewing an exclusive guest,
or uncovering the next mystery,
you can now reach a whole new audience with Spotify.
Podcasting just became more than audio.
Create with Anchor, watch on